All right, now we're going to have a presentation by Chuck Daldry, who has been fixing clocks for 40 plus.
Well, if you count, the first clock was when I was about 16, so it's been more than 40 years.
Okay. And I think you're the only one I know that recovers bellow tops.
There's some YouTube people that do it. I watch one of the presentations, and they basically wrap the stuff around and then cut away all the excess. And I thought to myself, there got to be a better way. And years ago, there was a merchant, Jamie Goggins, that sold a kit for doing this. And we had one of those at Antique Clock, and that was just about the way they suggested doing it. And I thought, the factory doesn't do it that way. So I sat down and figured out the geometry of the blasted bellows top and figured out how to make a duplicate of the original covering. And that's what the diagram here is. And for those, if anybody wants one, here's a quick and dirty diagram of how you start with a straight line and you wind up at the bottom with a completely designed cover with a fit of cuckoo clock bells. Obviously, you have to have the measurements for your clock, but simple enough process once you get started.
Okay, take it away, Chuck.
All right. Now, if you don't have drafting equipment, here's a quick and dirty way out of it. Use metric graph paper, and you can lay out your bellows diagram on the graph paper, and it'll keep you square, and it'll keep you, and you can see where your measurements are in error before you start cutting things out. So a great time saver, but I can do it either way. I've got drafting equipment, but that's not an everybody thing. Come here. All right, let's see. Now, you start by measuring the bellows.
Want me to move, Chuck?
Yeah, if you can. Or I can move this. I can move this back a little. There we go. Yeah. Okay. You start by measuring your bellows, and you draw a horizontal line. Move yourself enough room above and below so that you can about the width of the bellows above and below it, just to have a little playroom. And the L here is the length of the bellows from front to back. The W is the width, and you lay this out the length on each side, and this will come out into this shape when you get further down. But oh yeah, here I got a sick one, so you can see why you do this. There you go. There's a bellows for the leak, so you can understand the purpose of what I'm doing. If you look at the side, it still tries, but if you look at the side, it's got a definite problem.
Yeah. So this is an old one, probably with chamois skin,
Probably.
and over time it cracks.
Yeah, they deteriorate, but now if you've got trapezoid shaped bellows, the two lengths here won't be the same, but the process works the same way. The only thing you have to remember is you want to mark the longer one before you start cutting things out, or you can wind up with it. If you put it on backward, it doesn't fit. So you've got to, it gives you one more way to go wrong. But so you start out, you lay out a horizontal line, you start with the width across the center, and then you come out here. This is a mark for the length. You want your marks long enough so that because the last step, you're going to come out about on this mark. You're going to come out 3 millimeters on the side because you need some extra material to overlap to glue the thing up. So this is the height, the width minus 2 millimeters. And the reason I cut it back a couple millimeters is because I don't want my folds, when you fold up the sides of the bellows, if you have it the same length as the height, the folds are going to hit in the middle. And I'm not sure if over the long term that's not going to cause a problem. So I always try to leave myself a little bit of room in the middle. But so you start by, these lines have to be, this is your width minus 2 millimeter, and you make sure your lines are centered on your horizontal line, and then you start. The next step is you draw your lines across here. This is that you have it intersect down here at the end of the bellows, and this is a representation of the opening. You take this bellows and you open it, and if you open the bellows, you'll find that this pattern here is the same as this shape. So that's what I'm trying to do, is create that. Then I need a little extra because I've got to glue it on somehow. So I put 3 millimeters of, I just drop down to this is the end line for the length. I drop down 3 millimeters here, 3 millimeters beyond the width, and then lay out the lines, and they intersect further here than the length of the bellows. The extra length gives me some material at the back of the bellows to wrap around to reinforce the hinge. Now, if you look at any commercial cuckoo clock, you see a couple of pointed pieces on the back. So I'm pretty about copying what the people do when they make these things. If the hinge is bad, that, when you start cleaning it up, if you find out your hinge is bad, you get a piece of Tyvek and glue it on here. But when you do it, you want to put a piece of cardstock inside before you glue it on, so that you've got a little space there, and that allows the bellows to close up better, because it gives you a place for as the folds go inward, they've got a little clearance in there. Otherwise, it won't quite go shut. But so one thing I found is a little bit of a problem is when you go to cut this stuff to match. And on this one, I tried something different. I actually laid the pattern on top of the material and put a dot at the ends, and then put dots up here at the corners where it changes direction at the top, and just drew lines with a pen on the bellows material and just cut on the lines. And that seemed to work a little bit better than trying to hold a pattern and try to cut along it. But I've done it before, and sometimes I get it to work. The other thing to do is, after you make your pattern, you want to cut out your material. You want to mark just a little witness mark at each corner here where it breaks over, because that's going to be where it wraps around the front of the bellows. And so that gives you a way of lining things up easier and getting everything squared away. So now we're going to try the hard part of it.
How do you find the material?
Lou Oswald. About $8, $7.95 or something for you get this. Get your strip of that, and you get some of this too. Like, here's an example of how you want that. This top is, if you look at this is getting pretty badly chewed up, and you can get the replacement paper, and you can tighten it up a little bit, make it look nicer. Unless you're one of those people who absolutely going to leave it original as long as you can. But the last one of these things I did, George Dale had a set of trapezoid bellows out of a cuckoo with a coil. And so I did a demonstration on these coil bellows, and I did the others at home, and then I got one in to do, just to have something to show and tell. But see, and this seems to work about as well as anything with glue. It's just regular Elmer's craft bond. It's a tacky glue, and there is I have used the stuff in the brown bottles, the it's called tacky glue, and that works quite well for it.
That's how it works too.
I'm not sure who makes that one, but I think this is what Hobby Lobby had the day I went in there. So let's see if I can get this to cooperate this time. You know, I forgot the Kleenex. Oh, yeah, benefit with it, but it's okay. I can manage one way or another. Yeah. Hmm. Let's see if I can get that little snot to go on there now.
Okay. The nice thing about Ellen is this, it cleans up.
Oh, yeah.
Don't worry, it's not, you have multiple cameras on you.
Hmm. Ah, that's the.
Wouldn't it be easier if you were sitting, Chuck?
Well,
Not
probably, but we're a little late to worry about it. I should have thought about that. That was good. Maybe next time. No.
What's your tie back?
Yes. Spun bonded olefin fiber is another word for it, but Tyrex is easier to say.
So someone asked, can someone spell the name of the material Truck is using for the bellows fabric?
Tyvek.
Hmm.
Right?
No. Tyvek. There you go.
Are there different thicknesses or what that you can buy Tyvek in? What?
Wonder if that's an acronym for something. Or somebody's last name, maybe.
Still not.
Oh, this. This.
It says, is Tyvek sold in different thicknesses?
Yes, yes, because, Tyvek envelopes won't work for bellows tops, basic experience. I tried splitting it down, it still doesn't behave itself well. Also, I tried the cuff off of a, pair of painter's overalls, the disposable painter's overalls, and the stuff didn't, it wasn't, it would function, but it didn't, you have to make the top of the bellows with an extra disc or two to get it to go. It wasn't practical, but it was an experiment, you know.
So someone asked, is it sold in different thicknesses? Which thickness should we use?
That I don't know. I just, my solution is to contact Blue Eyes Weld and get this stuff inside because that's what I have and it works. So,
Or we could bring a micrometer someday.
well, yeah, actually it's 3,000 thick. That's right. But I don't know if that's a useful dimension or not. Because I was trying to decide if I needed one thickness of cardstock or two, and so I measured the Tyvek to see where I was going with it. But I don't know if it comes in, you know, if it's rated in thickness as in thousandths of an inch or how it's rated. So that 3,000 might not be a useful number. It's probably a little early to do this, but you use a written instrument. This is something that was in something I inherited. I have no idea where they came from or what they are, but popsicle will stick with the end filed to a edge. Yeah. The Jandy Goggins kit came with a ceramic carving tool, the ones that you use for greenware, which I thought was a pretty fancy thing to use for just bending the folds on a piece of Tyvek, but kind of coax it into shape a little bit at a time and it'll slowly start acquiring its bellows shape. What's that? No. I usually just close it up, and this one wants to be a little contrary on the right side here, but I think I got it. Get in there a little further. Actually, it looks like with the folds, I still got, I could have gone a little bit taller. Hold on a minute. Well, the glue's still a little damp, so I'll see, where's my screw hole? These actually sound different if you cover up the screw hole. Looks like somebody glued it shut. Yeah, but that one, it's gonna have to wait until this dries out a little bit better, but we're there. We've got a leak-free bellows on there. I think the next time I'm going to make it a little taller, though. I think actually that there's enough fabric taken up in the folds that I can go a little bit deeper. So I don't do very many of these, but like George's clock, because it was an old clock, you wanted to keep. If you want to keep your trapezoid bellows, you buy the material and do it yourself. But you find somebody like me that just likes to play with bellows, and I'll do it for you. You really are. But
And can you repeat, someone asked, where do you buy it again?
Mile High Clock Supplies. Yeah, Mile HI as in high clock supplies. Yes, I'm done for it.
Sometimes there's a piece of metal on the top.
Yeah, there is a tiny slug inside the top of this, and on that ABC, it had very weak cuckoos because, the glue had failed between the paper on the top and the, block here. And at some point, somebody had turned the clock upside down and it lost its weights. So, and I didn't have any of the proper weights handy. They were all usually in another.
So that helps give it volume.
Yes.
Things come down.
Yeah, and so I that one had fairly deep holes drilled in it, so I just put a couple of washers in there, and not quite kosher, but at the same time, who's going to notice a little bitty hole hiding underneath the paper in the top of the cuckoo clock? So,
I saw one where they put an old nipple in.
yeah,
Depending on the size of the.
yeah, I've got a 400 day that's got a pair of British pennies on the disc pendulum because somebody put the wrong spring in it and didn't want to sand the spring down. So instead he just, and I didn't realize what they were. I saw these pretty copper circles and I just kind of ignored them. And then I happened, the light hit it just right one day and I could see the outline of Victoria, Queen Victoria on the penny. And I thought, oh, my, I've got it.
Just just to comment on your template, I found that a manila file folder makes great material for your templates.
Mhm.
It's got enough body and you can draw on it as you need.
Yeah. Well, the reason I use the graph paper is because it keeps me square.
It keeps you square, but then, you know, that you've got enough weight,
Well, you can cut around it and we use,
cut around it or mark around it, whatever you want
Yeah.
to do. But
yeah. Well, this, I was able to mark around this pretty well, but, see, they,
chasing it around.
yeah.
Yes.
See, that's the template for this bellows here.
Yeah.
And that's, it just, so we're now ready to, now this one doesn't have any hooks on the side or anything, so this is just a spare that I'm, playing with basically. If it were a proper clock, it would have, that's one of the advantages of recovering your own bellows is that you don't have to transplant those little eyes from one to another, because sometimes I found out that the easiest way to do it without bending the things is to clamp a vise and drive the bellows onto it than to go the other way around, because some of those things are fairly soft metal and you start driving them, or take about a number 50 drill or better and make a little starting hole, because otherwise you have to fight with them. They got, so, or you cover the bellows and then you don't have to worry about fighting with it because you leave the hooks and they're all intact. But I just did a clock for, right now it's a learner at Helga's Deli that somebody gave me a clock and it didn't have a pipe. One of the pipes was missing. The guy had taken it apart and it came to me with one pipe in it. It was free, so what are you going to do? And I found a pipe that was agreeable, that would sound good with the other pipe, and then proceeded to play the color top thing and put it in the clock. And then I had to make up the hooks and the wires and all that to go with it. But, and that one's, if you go to Helga's restaurant and you look in the addition, hanging on the wall is one of my clocks. And in their main restaurant is a cuckoo with a quail that I've got to retrieve back one of these days. But he's not in a hurry to let me have my clock back because the kids like it because it peaks every quarter hour. But I offered to loan him a different one, and he doesn't like that one because it's got the correction chains on the bottom. It doesn't have it isn't a self-correcting movement. It's old enough that it's got cart wheels in it. And so his people he's got in the restaurant, they can wind the cuckoos all right, but they haven't figured out how to deal with the count wheel clocks yet. So the ones that I loan him now all have self-correcting movements. So you can, he's got a clock down. I just bring it in one of my spare cuckoos and fix him up, and we've got a good working relationship. Yeah, he always, every time I bring in a clock, he says, "Now you got to come around lunchtime, so at least I can feed you while you're here. And so, yeah, that's a bonus on top of what I get paid. I get some bratwurst out of it. So, any questions or?
Why the line is-
What's that?
I said, I have questions, not quite the line.
Yeah.
And I've noticed that the early cuckoo clocks, the ones with the bronze works in them and stuff.
Yeah.
Have a much mellower sound. I mean, they almost sound like a pipe organ. Is this the wood they use or
Well,
what is it?
I'm not sure,
So it's
but the
chambers?
pipes themselves are a little taller. And I think there's probably the relationship with the size of the slot and everything in there. I think they're just more carefully engineered. I mean, this thing here with a plastic top, I mean, it is what it is, but, I think that they just did a better job.
They actually tuned them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, cause I've got a core clock with a fast movement in it, and that has a really nice set of,
The sound is just a very mellow, like it's
Yeah.
an organ or something.
well, some when you look at them, you'll notice that the pipes in the old clocks are taller.
Yeah, they're quite long.
And that, so you get a lower tone. And they sound better than little peeper clocks do. Now, the other extreme I've got is I've got a cuckoo I should have brought that one in for show and tell. That little cuss is about this tall. And it's so small, they pack the cuckoo mechanism behind the movement. It's a tiny stripe, but it's not one of those just passing stripe. This is a full up cuckoo clock. But the movement for the cuckoo is on the back where it's a triple plate. Yeah. So, which not common in a cuckoo clock. I've never seen a triple plate cuckoo except for that little tiny thing. But the whole box is like 4 inches tall. And it takes small weights, and that's the only thing missing. But I noticed Black Forest has small enough weights for it, but I've got to overhaul the movement and figure out then what a good set of weights for it is. I can make it run, but I want to know what it is when it's right, and then buy it a set of weights, because that clock's worth fixing up.
I'll tell you a trick that I learned. One of the first things I was in trade for missing weights. And the man I learned to trade from said, you take and hook your weight that you wind up the clock with, and you hook it up to a scale, a scale with a hook on the bottom,
Right.
and you hook that hook on the bottom to a weight that is way too heavy.
Right.
You wind it up and let it run, and then when it stops, you look at the number of pounds reading on the
Mhm.
scale. He said you add 20% to that, and that's the weight.
Yeah.
that you do.
Well, in that case, it'd be grams too, because this clock is like this. So I think pounds is probably, if I try pounds, I'm probably going to have a broken clock. Or it's going to wear out very quickly. Plus, the weights would be so fat that that's part of the problem. I tried putting a pair of standard 270s on it, and they rub each other. You can see the divergence in the chains there. So I know it's got much smaller weights than that. But I ran it with a couple of pieces of brass rod, just taped the paper clip to the top of a brass rod and hung it on there just to have something to test it with.
Yeah.
But something that I got from a dealer in a shoe box, partially disassembled. One of those, but it was such a rare little cuckoo that I just had to have. One of those things. Miniature cuckoos are like miniature carriage clocks. Yeah, that you got a 3-inch tall ground sound array, you're happy. Even if it doesn't work. It just gives you another project. I've got one that somebody went in there and broke off the trip pins for the quarters on it. Because I think the strike would run down before the clock would. And so their solution was just to disable the quarters completely. And so now it strikes, and he took out the mechanism that switches back and forth between one ball and the other. And so now it strikes 2 through 13. So, because it was doing the quarter and then the strike, and it's all followed up in there. The clock works. It's just that some botchmaker decided to improve it.
It only takes one.
Yeah, I know. But the clocks work for fix, but yeah, I've got a project. You open that thing up and the front of it is just a forest of little levers. But now you've got phones with cameras. Back when I got this thing, I didn't have that kind of technology. Yeah, I wish I'd had that when I did my first New Haven triple plate, because that's got a miserable layout to it compared to any other model clock. And I sat there and I drew a picture of the darn thing before I took it apart because I wasn't 100% sure. It looked like nothing I'd ever met before. And the problem was I got a reputation. I could fix them and make them work. And so Steve was working with me at Antique Clock, and each time one would come in, he'd raise the price a little just to see how far he could push people. Because Pat Downey sent one to me. He said, so they carried one into his shop, and he said, I know somebody who's good with those things. Send it my way. Because not a lot of people like to work on that triple plate.
That's a smart car.
Well, but a lot of the problem is that the two front plates are so close together. And if you direct the bush a little bit, you look, the gear's cocked in there when you get done. You got to be very careful with that little snot. But, it takes me about twice as long as it does to do any other clock, but the full thing works when I get done. And that's I suppose what it's about. Because that's what Twinkle told me. She said, you're one of the slower guys I've had working on clocks here, but your comeback rate is lower than anybody else we've had. So keep on going where you're going. We'll take the slow and the long as they work. Yeah.
You can't run them too long after you're finished.
Well, I run a while, but it's just,
Anything I've run at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Minimum.
I know, but I don't have a problem with them running when I get done. It just takes me a while on things like the New Haven to get the thing to be right in the first place. I don't hurry my way through that beast. They're a challenge. Have any questions? Or?
Thank you.
Nothing else, class dismissed.
All right.
Stop recording. Stop recording.
Take a look at that material.